The spoon in Travis's hand froze halfway to his mouth when I said, "You earned that breakup, you know." The kitchen went so quiet the old fridge sounded like thunder. Gregory stopped stacking plates in the sink and just stared at me over his glasses. My son blinked once, twice, as if the words might change if he gave them time. "What did you just say?" he whispered. His cereal went soggy in the bowl between us, untouched. The morning light coming through the window caught the red rims around his eyes, proof he had cried, but not enough to see himself clearly. On the counter, his phone kept lighting up with group chats and notifications, a little screen still pretending his life was the same. "You heard me," I answered, fingers tight around my coffee mug so I wouldn't shake. "You pushed a good woman right to the edge and then acted surprised when she stepped off." "Eleanor, stop," Gregory muttered, dropping a plate a bit too hard into the sink. Water splashed his shirt, and he didn't even flinch. "You're saying I deserve to be cheated on?" Travis shot back, voice cracking. He shoved his chair back so fast it scraped the tile. "You'd rather side with some girl from another country than with your own son." "That girl," I said quietly, "flew across an ocean for you. You wouldn't even cross an airport gate for her." My boy looked at me like I'd struck him. My husband looked at me like I'd betrayed them both. I just held my mug and felt the line I'd been walking for 2 years finally snap. Gregory was the first to move. He wiped his hands on a dish towel, walked to the table, and placed it down a little too neatly, like he needed order to stay calm. "Eleanor, you're being cruel," he said. His voice wasn't loud, just sharp, the kind that cuts without rising. "I'm being honest," I replied. My fingers loosened from the mug, the warmth fading fast. Travis paced near the pantry door, opening it, closing it, opening it again. He didn't take anything out. He just needed something to touch. That wasn't the truth. "She didn't even try," he muttered. He grabbed a box of cereal and set it down too hard on the counter. "She gave up on me." "You gave her nowhere to go," I said. "Every month she walked into airports alone. Every trip she paid. Every time she told you she missed you, you shrugged." "That's not fair," he snapped. He pushed the cereal box away with the back of his hand, sending it spinning toward the edge. Gregory caught it before it fell, his jaw clenched. "You act like she was perfect," Travis said, eyes darting anywhere but at me. "She wasn't. She left. That's on her." "She left because you told her the world stops at our front door," I answered. "And she believed her life had to be bigger than that." Gregory sighed, long and tired. "Why say this today?" he asked. "Because you both keep pretending something else happened," I said, "and I'm done pretending." Travis's shoulders dropped, but the anger stayed in his eyes. He looked like a boy cornered by the consequences he built himself. Travis reached for his phone, thumb hovering over the screen like he might find a version of the story there that hurt less. He opened Lila's old messages, scrolled, then shut the phone again with a quick tap. "She didn't have to replace me that fast," he said. His voice thinned out. "She could have waited." "She waited for 2 years," I said. The words came softer, not kinder. Gregory pulled out a chair and sat down beside him, but Travis shifted away. A small move, but enough to show where his blame had settled. "You're acting like I didn't care about her," he said. "You didn't show it," I answered. His eyes flicked up, stung. "Love isn't a feeling you sit in," I added. "It's something you move for." "That's easy for you to say," he snapped. "You travel. You don't get scared." His glance toward Gregory lingered a second too long, and the air tightened. My husband straightened in his seat. "Don't drag me into this," Gregory said. But Travis didn't stop. "She kept telling me to try," he said. "Like boarding a plane was nothing. Like I had to prove myself." "She wasn't asking for proof," I replied. "She was asking for partnership." He rubbed his palms over his jeans, pressing down hard, like he could flatten the rising panic under them. "I thought she understood me," he whispered. "She did," I said, "but she also understood what she needed." A long beat, no movement, Just the three of us sitting in a kitchen that suddenly felt too small for the truth. Gregory stood up again, slower this time, and walked to the window. He gripped the edge of the frame, not enough to break anything, just enough to let the tension show in his knuckles. "I should have pushed him more," he said quietly. He followed my fear instead of his own sense. Travis shot him a look. "So now it's your fault?" His tone carried that brittle edge people use when they don't want responsibility to land. Gregory didn't turn around. "I never told you not to go," he said. "I told you to think. You decided not to think at all." Travis scoffed and pushed away from the counter. He grabbed his jacket from the back of a chair, then tossed it down again when the sleeve snagged on the handle. "You both loved her more than me," he said. It wasn't loud, but it was meant to wound. "I loved the version of you she brought out," I said. "That boy. He tried. He listened. He cared." Travis's breath hitched, but he masked it by pulling out a chair. He sat, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. "She was seeing someone else," he muttered. "We all saw her pictures." "She moved on," I replied. "That's not the same thing as cheating." "It feels the same," he said. "That's your hurt talking, not the truth." He shook his head sharply, as if he could dislodge the words. Gregory finally turned from the window. "Why are you so determined to blame her?" he asked. "Because blaming me feels worse," Travis whispered. The room sank into another quiet. Not peaceful, just heavy, like the air had its own weight. I leaned back in my chair, letting the wood press into my spine. Sometimes a little discomfort keeps you honest. "Travis," I said, "do you remember the weekend she asked you to meet her halfway? Not even the whole trip, just halfway." He didn't lift his head. His fingers traced the edge of the table, slow and restless. "Yeah," he said, "I remember." "You told her you were tired," I reminded him. "Not sick. Not overwhelmed, just tired." Gregory let out a short exhale, the kind that isn't quite a laugh but isn't kind either. "She kept pushing," Travis said. "She didn't accept me as I am." "No," I answered. "She accepted you for 2 years, and then she accepted the truth." He finally looked up. His eyes were damp, but not from grief alone. There was something else there, realization creeping in like an unwelcome shadow. "I didn't think it mattered that much," he said, "flying, traveling, all that stuff." "It mattered to her," I said, "and you knew that." He rubbed his face with both hands. "You make it sound so simple." "It was simple," Gregory said, stepping back toward us. "You made it complicated so you didn't have to change." Travis flinched at that, not visibly, but in the way his shoulders tightened. The way he blinked slow, like the words landed exactly where they were meant to. "You're both acting like I threw her away," he murmured. "You didn't throw her," I said. "You just stood still until she slipped out of reach." He swallowed hard. A slow, shaky movement he tried to hide. "Why does it hurt this much if I was the problem?" he asked. "Because loss doesn't care who caused it," I said quietly. "It hurts either way." Gregory pulled out the chair across from him and sat, elbows planted wide, as if bracing the table for all three of us. "You keep saying she didn't accept you," he said, "but you never asked what she needed." Travis rubbed a thumb over a stain in the wood grain, pushing at it like he could erase the whole conversation if he pressed hard enough. "I didn't think relationships were supposed to feel like pressure," he said. "They're not," I told him, "but they aren't meant to be a place where only one person moves." He lifted his head an inch. "So it's all on me." "No," I replied. "It's on the choices you made." He pushed back from the table suddenly, the chair legs scraping a long line through the quiet. Then he stood there, hands on his hips, breathing shallow. Gregory watched him like a man watching his own mistakes walk around the room. "She said she'd move here," Travis said. "Do you know how big that is? Leaving everything?" "Yes," I answered. "That's why she asked so little from you in return." He shook his head. "You don't get how scared I was." "I do," I said softly, but fear doesn't excuse effort. It explains it, but it doesn't excuse it. He let out a bitter laugh. So that's how you see me. Scared, lazy, useless. Stop putting words in her mouth. Gregory cut in. She's telling you where the cracks were. You just don't want to hear them. Travis turned away, grabbed his jacket again, and this time clutched it like he needed something to hold up his anger. She moved on so fast, he whispered. It makes me feel like I never mattered. I stood up too, slower. Standing didn't make me taller, but it made the truth land more clearly. You mattered, I said, but mattering isn't enough if you never show up. He closed his eyes tight, and for the first time that morning, his breathing stalled, not quite a sob, but close enough to break the room open a little. Travis set his jacket down again, this time carefully, as if any sudden movement might crack something he wasn't ready to face. He leaned both hands on the counter and stayed there, shoulders tight, back curved inward. Gregory watched him with a stillness I'd only ever seen when he was trying not to step into a fight he couldn't win. She said she was willing to build a life here, Travis murmured. She said she could make it work if I just met her halfway. He let out a dry breath. I thought she'd wait forever. That's the problem, I said. You treated her effort like it was endless, like she didn't get tired too. He turned toward me slowly. You make me sound like I never loved her. I think you loved the comfort she gave you, I answered, but not the work it takes to keep someone close. His jaw clenched. He pushed off the counter and started pacing. 3 steps one way. Turn, 3 steps back. The rhythm was uneven, almost frantic. Gregory stepped aside so he wouldn't collide with him. You think she was right to leave me, he said. His voice wasn't angry anymore, just raw, as if he was testing the truth and didn't like the answer. I think she left because she finally believed you, I said. You told her you'd never go to her, never travel, never meet her life where it was. She heard you. He stopped pacing. His hands dropped to his sides. Why didn't anyone make me see it earlier? Gregory swallowed hard. I tried, he said. She did too. Your mother did the most. He shook his head. No, you all just let me stay the way I was. That's not true, I said. You heard us. You just didn't want the discomfort that came with changing. He pressed his fingers to his temples, squeezing like he could push the confusion out. I feel stupid, he said quietly. I feel like the whole world moved without telling me. No, I murmured. The world told you many times. You just chose the quietest part of yourself and listened to that instead. A soft knock echoed from the front door, just once, hesitant, pulling all 3 of us still. Travis straightened a little, fear flickering across his face. He whispered, If that's her, I can't handle it. Gregory stepped out of the kitchen first, moving toward the hallway with slow, measured steps. Travis stayed rooted to the tile, eyes locked on the doorway as if it might swallow him whole. I rested one hand on the back of a chair, not for support, but because the tension in the air needed somewhere to land. Gregory opened the door. A thin draft of morning air slipped in. Then a voice followed. Sorry to bother you this early, Marcy said. Our neighbor, not Lila, just Marcy, standing there with a stack of misdelivered mail and a look that said she'd walked into something she shouldn't see. Travis exhaled so hard his shoulders dropped. Relief hit him first. Embarrassment came right after. Gregory thanked her, took the mail, and closed the door gently. But Marcy had already glanced past him, toward the kitchen, toward Travis's red eyes, toward the tension hanging between us like wet laundry. When Gregory came back, he set the mail on the table. A few envelopes slid across the wood. One of them, thin, blue, international, caught Travis's attention immediately. He reached for it, stopped, looked at me. It's from her, he whispered. My breath stayed tight in my chest, but I nodded. He slipped a finger under the seal, tearing it slower than necessary, as if whatever was inside might burn him if he rushed. He unfolded the paper. His eyes moved left to right, line to line, then his lips parted, barely. "It's an apology," he murmured. "She said she wishes it had ended differently. But she couldn't stay where she wasn't met." He blinked hard, letting the words settle. "She said she cared for me deeply," he continued, "and that she never wanted to hurt our family." Gregory lowered into his chair. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Travis held the letter like it was something fragile, like it contained the last soft version of his past. "She didn't hate me," he said. "It wasn't revenge." "No," I replied. "It was self-respect." He pressed the letter to the table with a flat palm, breathing unevenly. "I don't know how to fix myself from this," he whispered. "You start by admitting you're not done growing," I said. He didn't look up, but his hand stopped shaking. Travis folded the letter once, then again, smaller than it had been, as if reducing its size could shrink the ache sitting in his chest. He set it beside his phone but didn't let go right away. His fingertips lingered on the edge, tracing it like a bruise he wasn't ready to stop touching. Gregory cleared his throat. Not loud, just a short, unsteady sound that said he was trying to choose the right words and failing. "I know you're hurting," he said, "but pain isn't punishment. It's a signal." Travis didn't answer. His gaze stayed fixed on the folded letter, a single crease catching the light. I stepped closer, slow and careful. The same way you approach someone who's holding their guilt too tightly to see the world around them. "When someone leaves," I said, "you look at the version of yourself they knew, and sometimes you don't like what you see." He swallowed, throat working hard. "That's exactly how it feels. You don't have to stay that version," I told him, "but you do have to admit he existed." That made him flinch, a small, sharp jerk of his chin, like a truth had landed with more weight than he expected. "I thought loving her was enough," he whispered. "I thought she'd see that." "She did," I said. "That's why she held on as long as she did." He finally looked up. His eyes were damp but no longer frantic, just tired, bruised in a quiet way. "She deserved better," he said. The words cracked open at the end, not loud, not dramatic, just painfully honest. "So do you," I replied. "But better isn't something you get by standing still." Gregory reached out and nudged the letter toward him with 2 fingers. "Read it again later," he said. "Not to torture yourself, to understand what you missed." Travis nodded barely. His shoulders loosened, not in relief, but in surrender, like he'd finally stopped fighting the truth he'd been wrestling in circles. "I don't want this to be who I am," he said quietly. "The kind of confession you only say when you're done hiding from your own reflection." "Then it won't be," I answered. For the first time all morning, he breathed deep, not steady, not clean, but deeper than before. Gregory moved to the sink again, turning on the water even though nothing needed washing. The stream was low, steady. The kind a man uses when he needs sound to fill a space he doesn't know how to soften. Travis stayed at the table, fingertips resting on the letter, not holding it, just anchoring himself. "Did she say anything else?" Gregory asked without looking up. Travis unfolded the letter again, slower this time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something he could survive. "She said I have a good heart," he murmured. He paused, eyes narrowing on one line. "But she also said a good heart doesn't help if the person doesn't show up to their own life." He let out a long breath. Not broken, just emptied. I stepped beside him, close enough to see the trembling in the paper, not dramatic shaking, just that subtle tension of a boy pretending he isn't unraveling. "She's right," I said gently. "It's not enough to feel things. You have to move with them." Travis pressed his thumb against a sentence in the letter. The pressure wrinkled the page. "I thought staying comfortable meant staying safe," he said. "It doesn't," I replied. "It just means you never learn how far you can grow." He leaned back, staring up at the ceiling as if it held some version of himself he lost a long time ago. "I don't even know where to start," he whispered. "Start small," Gregory said from the sink. He turned the water off and dried his hands. "Start with leaving the house. Start with going somewhere that isn't familiar. Start with one thing she asked you for, even if she's not here to see it." Travis swallowed hard. "You think she'd care?" "No," I said. "That's the point. Growth isn't a performance. It's a correction." He set the letter down flat, smoothing the wrinkles. "I feel like she carried the whole relationship on her back," he said. "She did," I answered. "And she didn't complain. She just stopped carrying when her legs gave out." His throat worked again, slower this time. "I didn't think she'd ever stop loving me." "It's not that she stopped," I said. "It's that she started loving herself more." Gregory moved closer and placed a hand on Travis's shoulder. Something small shifted in him at that, like a wall cracking, not crashing, just loosening enough for light to get in. "I don't want to be the man she walked away from," Travis whispered. "Then you won't be," I said, "but you have to walk too." He nodded, tiny, tentative, but it was the first step he'd taken in years. Travis got up from the table for the first time in over an hour, not abruptly, just a slow, uncertain rise, like a man testing new ground beneath his feet. He walked to the living room doorway, stopped there, and pressed his palm against the frame. A small gesture, but it carried the weight of someone bracing himself against his own shame. "I kept thinking she'd understand," he said without turning around. "She did," I answered. "That's why she stayed as long as she did." He let out a thin sigh. It didn't feel like I was hurting her. It felt like staying the same was just easier. "Easier for you," I said, "but someone always pays for easy." This time, it was her. Gregory stepped behind him, leaving a respectful distance. No crowding, no pushing, just presence. "You know what scared me most?" Travis asked. He finally turned, eyes glossy but steady. "I wasn't afraid of flying. I was afraid of disappointing her if I tried." "That's the part you never said," I replied, "and the part she waited to hear." He dragged a hand over his jaw, exhaling through his teeth. "I thought effort meant risking failure." "It does," I said, "but no effort guarantees loss." Travis moved to the couch and sat, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. Gregory took the armchair beside him. I stayed standing, leaning lightly against the doorway. "I think I pushed her into someone else's arms," he whispered. "Not because she wanted him, but because he was willing to move." "Maybe," I said, "but her leaving wasn't a punishment. It was a boundary." He nodded slowly, letting the truth settle, not fight. "Do you think she ever meant it? All those plans?" "She did," I said, "but plans only live when both people carry them." He rubbed his palms together, grounding himself. "I'm not asking for another chance with her," he said. "I just don't want this to be the story I keep repeating." "That's the first real thing you've said today," Gregory murmured. Travis looked up at me. "I wish I hadn't needed to lose her to learn it." I stepped closer. "Most people do." Travis sank deeper into the couch, his fingers laced so tightly his knuckles whitened. The morning light had shifted across the room, turning softer, lower, almost apologetic. He stared at the carpet like it might offer answers we couldn't. "I keep replaying everything," he said. "Every time she asked me to visit, every time I said no, every excuse I made sound reasonable in my head." "That's how avoidance works," I replied. "It gives you comfort first, consequences later." Gregory leaned forward in his chair. "You weren't a bad partner," he said. "You were an uninvolved one. It's not the same thing, but it leads to the same ending." Travis swallowed hard. I didn't realize how lonely she must have been, flying alone every month, sitting in airports, spending her own money, walking into this house with a smile even when I didn't meet her halfway. He paused, A long, heavy pause. I thought her loyalty meant certainty. Loyalty isn't a contract, I said. It's a gift, and gifts run out when they're not received. He scrubbed a hand through his hair and let it fall back into place. I thought she'd never imagine a future without me. She didn't, I said. She learned to after trying everything with you. His jaw tightened. If I had gone once, just once. He didn't finish. The sentence collapsed under its own regret. Gregory stood and walked toward him, placing a steady hand on his back. Not a pat, not pity, just a grounding weight. You can't change what happened, he said, but you can decide what kind of man you want to be from here. Travis blinked, slow, like his thoughts were sorting themselves into painful order. I don't want fear to run my life anymore, he said quietly, and I don't want to hide behind convenience. That's growth, I said. Not the loud kind, the real kind. He nodded, wiping his face with the side of his palm. You know, he whispered, I always thought love was supposed to just happen. I never understood that it's built. That's what you learn now, I said. Not for her, for you. He inhaled deeply. For the first time all morning, it didn't sound like a struggle, more like a beginning. Travis leaned back against the couch and let his head rest there, eyes closed, as if the ceiling might steady him. His breathing evened out, not calm, not resolved, but no longer frantic, the kind of breath someone takes after they've stopped running from themselves. I'm embarrassed, he said without opening his eyes. Not because she left, because I didn't see myself clearly until she did. That's what heartbreak does, I replied. It introduces you to the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. He finally looked at me. There was no anger there now, just a quiet ache. Do you think she hated that I wouldn't come to her? No, I said. I think she hated that you never tried. He nodded, a small, resigned motion. When she mentioned the idea of me flying out, I shut it down so fast I didn't even ask how long she'd stay or what we'd do. I just panicked. Fear makes you protect the wrong things, I said, and sacrifice what you need without realizing. Gregory sat beside him, shoulders brushing. You're not the only one who's been scared of change, he said softly. Travis looked at him, surprised. I spent half my life avoiding anything that made me uncomfortable, Gregory continued. I know what it costs. Travis frowned. So why didn't you tell me? I did, Gregory said. You just didn't want your fear named. A beat of silence passed. Travis absorbed that like someone letting medicine dissolve on the tongue, slow, unpleasant, necessary. I guess I always pictured her waiting at the gate for me, he said. Like she'd always be there, smiling, ready. And she waited, I said, but even the patient get tired. He lowered his head again. You know the worst part? He didn't wait for my answer. She believed in us more than I did. That's what you mourn now, I said. Not just losing her, losing the version of yourself you were supposed to grow into. The words hit him. I saw it in the way his fingers curled, not in anger, but realization. He breathed out, slow, measured. I want to change, he said. For real this time. Good, I replied, because life won't wait for you the way she did. A quiet filled the room, not heavy, not hostile, just honest. Travis sat forward, elbows digging into his knees, as if he needed the pressure to keep himself present. The living room was still. The kind of stillness that follows truth after it's been spoken aloud for the first time. Gregory shifted closer, resting one arm along the back of the couch, not touching him, but close enough to steady the air around him. I keep thinking about all the times she hinted she was tired, Travis said. She never said it outright, but I could feel it, and I ignored it. That's the part that hurts most, I replied. Not what you missed, what you chose not to see? He winced, the kind of wince people make when a memory flickers too sharply behind their eyes. She'd sit here, he murmured, glancing at the corner of the couch. Right there. and she'd talk about her work, her friends, her life back home. And I'd just nod. You nodded because listening meant acknowledging her world, I said. And acknowledging her world meant traveling into it. He closed his eyes for a moment, sinking into the truth. When he opened them, there was a strange mixture of grief and clarity. She didn't want a grand gesture, he said. She just wanted one sign that I wasn't stuck. That's all most people want, I said. A sign they're not carrying the relationship alone. Gregory let out a slow exhale. I should have handled this better, he said. I didn't mean to pass my fear down to you. Travis looked at him, startled. You didn't make me scared, he said. I chose comfort because it felt easier than trying. That admission settled between them. Something soft, something real. A truth that freed and hurt at the same time. You know, Travis continued, voice quieter. I told myself she'd appreciate how steady I was, how predictable. But she needed someone who could meet her halfway, not stand still and call it stability. I nodded. She wasn't asking for adventure. She was asking for effort. He leaned back again, but this time his posture was different. Not defeated, just stripped of excuses. I don't blame her anymore, he said. I think she lasted longer than she should have. That's growth, I said. Not the kind that feels good, the kind that makes you better. A moment passed, then another, and I watched something shift in him, not loudly, not dramatically, but undeniably. He finally whispered, I want to learn how to show up before I lose anything else. Travis stood up again, slower this time, as if he needed to feel the ground move beneath him before he trusted himself to speak. He walked toward the hallway, not leaving, just putting a little distance between himself and the weight he'd been carrying. He rested one hand against the wall, fingers spreading out like he was trying to steady more than just his balance. I thought being dependable meant staying put, he said, but it just meant I stayed small. Gregory stepped closer but didn't close the distance. He let Travis have the space he was reaching for. You weren't small, Gregory said. You were scared. Travis nodded, and that felt safer than trying. I moved toward them, stopping where the carpet met the hardwood, giving him the same respect. Lila didn't leave because you weren't enough, I said. She left because you didn't move with her. He turned toward me, eyes shimmering in a way he didn't try to hide anymore. I didn't think she'd actually leave, he whispered. She kept loving me, kept showing up. That's what made it hurt her more, I replied. She had to walk away from something she gave everything to. He leaned his head back against the wall, letting it hold him. Do you think she'll remember me as someone who didn't try? I stepped a little closer. I think she'll remember you as someone she cared about, and someone she couldn't wait for forever. He closed his eyes, and the silence that followed wasn't defensive anymore. It was acceptance, a small, brave kind. I want to change, he said. His voice steadier this time, but I don't know where to start. Start by doing one thing you avoided, I said. Not for her, for your life. He opened his eyes, meeting mine. What if I fail? You already survived losing someone you loved, I said softly. Failure won't break you the same way. Gregory took a step closer then, placing a steady hand on the wall beside his son. You don't have to do everything today, he said. Just take one step. The rest will follow. Travis nodded again, slower, deeper, as if the motion itself grounded him. I want to be someone Lila would have been proud of, he whispered. You want to be someone you're proud of, I corrected. That's where it starts. A long breath left his body, and finally, his posture changed. Not defeated, not lost, just ready. Travis pushed off the wall and walked back into the living room, but something in his stride had shifted. Not confidence, just intention. Gregory and I followed, slower, giving him room to decide who he wanted to be in this moment. He sat again. This time on the edge of the couch instead of sinking into it. Hands clasped, shoulders forward, a posture that said he wasn't hiding anymore. "I want to apologize to her," he said. "Not to get her back, just because she deserved better from me." "You can," I replied, "but don't frame it as a plea. Frame it as responsibility." He nodded, eyes fixed on the rug like he was reading some invisible script. "I spent so much time thinking I was the one being abandoned," he said. "I never noticed she was the one doing all the heavy lifting." "That's what love looks like when it goes unbalanced," I said. "One person carries the weight. The other mistakes comfort for contribution." Travis exhaled shakily. "She loved me enough to move countries for me," he said. "And I didn't even love her enough to board a plane." Gregory rubbed his forehead, the guilt settling heavily between father and son. "Travis," he said, voice lined with regret. "I know my fear rubbed off on you. I didn't realize how much." Travis looked up at him, not angry, not defensive, just open. "You didn't make me this way," he said. "I chose easy, over and over." That honesty cracked something in the room, quietly, gently, like ice thawing. "I don't want to be the kind of man who only learns after losing," Travis continued. "I want to be someone who shows up before it's too late." I stepped closer, resting my hand on the top of his shoulder. He didn't pull away, he didn't stiffen, he just breathed. "You're grieving her," I said. "But you're also grieving the version of yourself you should have grown into while she was here." His eyes reddened, but he didn't look down this time. He held my gaze. "I want to change," he repeated, "but I need help." "You'll have it," Gregory said. "Not to fix the past, to build the future. And to stop fear from deciding everything for you," I added. He nodded, shoulders loosening like he'd set down something too heavy to name. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "I think I'm ready to try." For the first time all morning, I believed him. Travis stood again, slower than before, but with a steadiness that hadn't been there an hour ago. He walked to the kitchen doorway, paused, then looked back at us as if testing the ground beneath a new version of himself. The morning light caught the outline of his face, softer now, stripped of defensiveness. "I want to do something different today," he said, "something I usually avoid." Gregory lifted his brows. "Like what?" "I don't know yet," Travis admitted, "but I'm tired of being trapped in the same four walls of my own habits." He crossed into the kitchen and opened the cabinet where we kept our travel mugs. He picked one up, turned it in his hands, set it down, picked it up again. It wasn't about the mug. It was about the decision it represented. "I used to tell Lila I didn't need to go anywhere," he said, "that I was happy here. But really, I was scared of what leaving would reveal about me." "What do you think it would have revealed?" I asked. "That I wasn't as grown as I pretended to be," he said quietly, "that she was braver than me, that she wanted more from life than I did." He placed the mug down with a little thud, not a slam, just a truth settling into the counter. "I thought staying put meant staying safe," he continued, "but now it just feels like staying stuck." Gregory leaned against the fridge, arms loosely crossed. "You don't have to become someone else overnight," he said. "You just have to stop hiding behind the version of yourself that didn't try." Travis nodded, a small, sharp motion. "I've been thinking," he said. "I want to start going places, even small ones, just to get used to movement, to change." "That's a good start," I said, "but you need to understand something first." He looked at me, waiting. "Changing won't bring her back," I said softly. "It might not repair what you lost, but it will stop you from losing the next good thing that comes along." His eyes glistened, not with panic, not with pain, just with clarity. "I know," he whispered. "I'm not doing this for her anymore. I'm doing it because I don't want to be the man who stays behind while everyone else learns to fly." He took a long, steady breath, then another. "I hope," he said, that someday I'll look back at this and see the moment everything shifted. That's what this is, I replied. A beginning. He nodded again, slower, grounded. Then he reached for his keys on the counter, just held them, not shaking, not hesitating, just holding. Travis looped the key ring around his index finger, letting it swing once before catching it again. A small motion, but it held the kind of determination I hadn't seen in him since before the breakup, before the retreating, the excuses, the shrinking into the safest corners of his own life. "I don't even know where I'm going," he said. His voice wasn't lost, just honest. "You don't need a destination," I said. "You just need direction." He glanced toward the front door. For a second, I thought he might walk straight out, step into the world the way Lila had begged him to. But instead, he walked to the dining table, pulled out a chair, and sat down again. This time, his posture wasn't collapsed. It was intentional, grounded. "I want to write to her," he said. "Not to convince her of anything, just to take responsibility for who I was." Gregory nodded, settling across from him. "That's not weakness," he said. "That's maturity." Travis picked up a pen from the table and turned it between his fingers. "Do you think she'll read it?" "Yes," I said. "But that can't be the reason you write it." He let the pen rest against the page but didn't start writing. Instead, he looked at the letter she sent, the one sitting beside his elbow, still folded but softer now, worn at the edges from the number of times he'd touched it. "I didn't realize how much she carried alone," he murmured. "All those flights, all that money, all that hope." "You didn't ask where she hurt," I said, "and she didn't ask where you feared. That's where the gap lived." He bowed his head slightly, almost reverent, almost grieving. "I let her love me more than I loved her in action," he whispered. "That's the truth I didn't want to say out loud." "And now you have," I said. "That's what growth sounds like." He inhaled slowly, then finally placed the pen to the page. The first few strokes were hesitant, uneven. Then the letters formed, and the room shifted. Not loudly, not triumphantly, just a subtle recalibration, like something finally aligning. Gregory and I stepped back, giving him space to write. The scratch of the pen was soft, steady, the sound of effort, of ownership, of a man stepping out of the shadow of who he used to be. After a minute, he paused, lifting his hand. He looked at what he had written. "It's messy," he said quietly, "but it's real." "That's all it needs to be," I replied. He folded the paper once, then again, set it beside her letter. "Whatever happens next," he said, "I don't want to go back to being the man I was." "You won't," I said, "because now you're choosing to move." He nodded deeper this time, a decision settling in his bones. Outside, a car passed, a quiet hum, a reminder that life was still moving, even when he wasn't ready. He reached for his keys again. This time, he didn't let them dangle. He held them with purpose. Travis slipped the keys into his palm, closing his fingers around the metal until they stopped shifting. He stood there for a moment, quiet, as if weighing the difference between leaving the house for the first time with intention or sitting back down and letting the day fold in on itself. Gregory watched him carefully, not hopeful, not anxious, just present. "I don't want to run from this," Travis said, "but I also don't want to hide in here and pretend I'm okay." "You're not running," I said. "You're choosing movement over fear." "That's different." He nodded once, then walked toward the front door. Every step sounded heavier than it should have, heavy with old habits, old patterns, old excuses peeling away. He reached for the doorknob but didn't turn it. Not yet. "I always told her I didn't need to see the world," he said quietly. "But now I feel like I was just scared of being seen by it." Gregory moved closer, leaning one shoulder against the wall near him. "That's what fear does," he said. "It convinces you that small is safe." "And she lived big," Travis whispered. "So big I didn't know how to match it." "You didn't have to match it," I said. You just had to walk toward it. He let that settle. It hurt, but it didn't break him. She deserved someone who could meet her where she stood, he continued. And I stayed planted. You stayed comfortable, I corrected. Comfort is the quietest trap. Travis's grip tightened on the keys. I don't want comfort anymore, not if it keeps me from growing. He cracked the door open a few inches. Cold air drifted in, fresh, sharp, honest. He breathed it in like someone tasting clarity for the first time. Then he closed the door again, turned back to us. I'm not ready for an airport, he said, but I can start with a drive, somewhere I've never been, anywhere that isn't here. That's big enough, I said. Small changes still move you forward. He slipped the keys into his pocket. He didn't fidget with them this time. He didn't stall. He just stood straighter. I'll be back later, he said, and for the first time, his voice carried something new, something steady, something earned. Not confidence, not certainty, just willingness. He stepped toward the door again, turned the knob, and this time, he didn't freeze. The door opened wider this time, letting in a fuller rush of cold air that brushed across his face. He didn't flinch, he didn't retreat. He stepped 1 foot onto the porch, testing the feel of it beneath him like someone walking into a life they'd spent years avoiding. Gregory and I stayed a few steps behind, not blocking, not guiding, just there, a backstop, not a leash. Travis looked out toward the driveway. His car sat there, quiet, ordinary, the same one he'd used for work, errands, routines, but never for anything that asked him to grow. It feels strange, he said softly, doing something without being pushed. That's how change begins, I replied, when it's chosen, not demanded. He nodded, eyes fixed on the car as if weighing its distance. It wasn't far, but fear never measures in feet, it measures in willingness. I used to picture myself flying out to see her someday, he said. Not because I wanted to, but because I thought she needed it as proof. And now? I asked. He turned slightly, just enough for me to see the truth settling in his expression. Now I wish I'd wanted to do it. For me. A quiet admission, a painful one, but the right one. Gregory stepped closer, placing a hand on the doorframe beside him. You can't go back, he said, voice steady, but you don't have to stay the man who didn't try. Travis breathed in, long and slow, letting the cold air clear a path through him. I'm not trying to be someone new today, he said. I just want to stop being the version of me that held her back. He took another step outside, fully onto the porch now, a deliberate step, a chosen one. The house behind him felt still. The morning felt open, and he looked, for the first time, like he wasn't bracing against his own life. I'll drive, he said. Somewhere quiet, somewhere I can think. That's enough, I said. It's more than enough. He moved toward the car, each step small but certain. He reached the driver's door, rested his hand on the handle, paused, not in fear, but in reflection. Then he opened it, slid inside, closed the door. Gregory stood beside me. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The engine started, soft, steady, like the beginning of something he'd avoided naming. Travis looked at us once through the windshield, not for permission, not for reassurance, just acknowledgement. Then he backed out of the driveway, slow, careful, intentional. We watched the car disappear down the street, not fast, not fleeing, just moving. When the quiet finally settled, Gregory whispered, "Do you think he'll be okay?" I looked at the empty road. I think, I said, this is the first time he's ever tried. I stayed by the doorway long after the sound of the engine faded. The cold drifted in, brushing my arms, settling into the room like a reminder that change always leaves a draft behind. Gregory stepped away first, rubbing his hands together as if warming them could ease the worry gathering across his face. He's really out there, he murmured, on his own. He always was, I said. He just finally noticed. We walked back into the living room. The chair he'd been sitting in still held the curve of his weight. The letter from Lila lay on the table exactly where he left it, folded, softened, alive in its honesty. I picked it up gently, smoothing one of the creases with my thumb. Gregory watched me. "You're thinking about her," he said. "Yes," I replied, "but not in the way you think." He waited. He always waited when the truth took time to form. "I'm thinking about the woman who kept loving our son past his comfort," I said, "and about the version of him she tried to believe in." Gregory sighed, sinking onto the couch. "She gave him chances I didn't think anyone had the patience for." "That's the thing about love," I said. "It holds you until it hurts, and then it lets go." He glanced at me, a shadow of guilt crossing his features. "You think she was seeing that other guy before the breakup?" "I think she was tired before the breakup," I answered, "and tired people sometimes move toward what feels possible." Gregory nodded slowly, not agreement, just understanding. I set the letter back on the table. "A part of him will always wonder," he said. "That's how heartbreak works," I replied. "You don't get to tie everything up neatly. Some questions stay open." He leaned back and rubbed his eyes. "He's going to change," he said quietly. "I can see it." "So can I said. "But change is lonely at first." The house felt bigger without Travis in it. Not empty, just widened by the space he'd been afraid to step into. Gregory looked toward the door. "You think he'll come back different?" "No," I said softly. "He'll come back beginning." The quiet settled again. Soft and thoughtful. Somewhere outside, a bird called, one short note, then another. Small things reminding the world to keep moving. I sat down, letting the room breathe, letting myself breathe. For the first time all morning, the weight on my chest eased, not because everything was fixed, but because he had finally taken responsibility for the break instead of blaming the fall. And that, more than anything, felt like hope. Gregory drifted toward the kitchen, moving slowly, the way people do when their thoughts are louder than their footsteps. I stayed in the living room, my hand resting lightly on the back of the chair Travis had used. The fabric was still warm. It felt like the last trace of the boy he had been that morning, and the first trace of the man he was trying to become. Gregory opened a cabinet, then closed it without taking anything out. He leaned on the counter, palms flat. "He's stronger than he thinks," he said. "He always was," I replied. "He just hid behind staying small." Gregory turned to face me. "You think we failed him?" "No," I said. "I think we protected him from things he needed to face." He nodded, the truth settling somewhere behind his eyes. We both knew the pattern. A childhood full of gentle shields, easy paths, comfort offered before discomfort could build resilience. Love can soften you too much when it doesn't come with challenge. "He's out there now," Gregory said, "driving somewhere he's never been, thinking about a future he never pictured." "That's what heartbreak does," I said. "It opens the door you've locked yourself behind." Gregory came back to the living room. He sat, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. "He loved her," he said. "I know," I replied. "He just didn't know how to show it." "And now he does," Gregory murmured. "Now he has to live with the timing." A quiet passed between us, one of those quiets that doesn't hurt, just acknowledges what can't be undone. I looked toward the window. Outside, the street was empty, the sunlight stretching across the pavement like a soft warning. Change is coming whether you're ready or not. "I hope he finds his way," Gregory said. "He will," I answered. "He's finally looking." We sat there for a long moment, listening to a house that suddenly felt older, wiser, worn in new places. Grief wasn't choking the air anymore. Reflection had settled in its place. "He'll come home," Gregory said. "When he's ready," I replied. We have to give him that. A small breeze moved the curtains, just a faint shift of air, but enough to remind me that movement, any movement, is a beginning. I leaned back in my seat, letting the room hold me the same way it had held him. Softly, quietly, with space to grow, and for the first time since he said the words, "She left me," I felt something loosen in my chest, not hope for getting her back, but hope for who he might become without her. The afternoon light shifted across the floor in slow, patient lines. I moved to the window, watching the empty road the way a mother watches for the shape of her child long before the child appears, not expecting, just staying open. Gregory joined me after a moment, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, the posture of a man carrying worry he didn't want to name. "Do you think he'll call?" he asked. "Eventually," I said, "but I don't want him to. Not right away." "Why not?" "Because calling would mean he's looking for reassurance, and right now he needs reflection more than comfort." Gregory nodded slowly. He understood. He always did, even when he didn't agree. "Do you think she's thinking about him today?" he asked quietly. "She probably is," I said, "but not the way he hopes." "Meaning?" "She's thinking about what it cost her to leave, not whether she should come back." He exhaled, long and steady. "That hurts," he said. "It's supposed to," I replied. "It's the truth." We walked back to the dining table. The two letters lay side by side, hers, soft at the edges, his, sharper, newer, written with the weight of accountability. Gregory touched the corner of hers gently. "I wish he'd tried sooner," he said. "So do I answered. "But some people only grow when the ground under them gives way." He looked up at me. "You think this will be enough to change him?" "No," I said. "This will be the thing that starts the change. The rest is on him." Outside, a car door slammed somewhere down the street. Not his, just a neighbor. Still, we both turned. Habit, hope, instinct blending into one movement. Gregory chuckled under his breath. "A part of me wants to chase after him," he admitted. "Tell him it's okay. He doesn't have to be anything more than he is." "That's the part that kept him small," I said gently. "And it's the part we have to outgrow, too." He considered that, let it settle, then nodded. We sat at the table again, the house warm around us. The morning's tension replaced by something quieter, deeper, an understanding of what loss can teach. "I'm proud of him," Gregory said suddenly. It surprised me, but the truth of it was undeniable. "I am too," I said. "Not for who he's been, for who he's starting to be." The room held that softness, a kind of hopeful ache, and in the quiet that followed, I whispered something meant only for myself. He needed to break to see the parts worth rebuilding. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't closure. It was clarity. Gregory eventually drifted into the kitchen, leaving me alone with the quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't choke. It just settles, like dust after a long storm. I stood by the table, fingertips brushing the edge of Travis's letter. The ink was still slightly raised on the page. Fresh truth always leaves a texture behind. Outside, the light had cooled. Late afternoon leaning toward evening, a soft dimming across the room. I walked to the front door and opened it. Not wide, just enough to feel the air. Cold, clean, honest. The street stretched out empty. No car in sight. Just the faint hum of distant traffic somewhere beyond the trees. Gregory called from the kitchen. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. And I meant it. For the first time all day, the ache in my chest wasn't sharp. It was something else. Something quiet. Almost tender. A recognition that pain can shift shape when someone finally faces the truth you've been holding for them. I stepped onto the porch. The wooden plank beneath my foot felt cool, steady, the kind of steadiness you only notice when the rest of your world has been shaken. A breeze moved through the yard, brushing the leaves, carrying the faint smell of pine from down the street. It wasn't a sign. It wasn't a message. Just air. Moving. The way he finally had. I stood there a moment longer, letting that settle. Letting myself settle. Then I stepped back inside and closed the door gently, not shutting anything out, just letting the house breathe again. The latch clicked softly. A small sound. A simple one. But it felt like the right place to leave the day. If something in this story found you, you can share below.